Okay, so we are going to review today how to deal with equations that have fraction coefficients. So what that means is the number in front of the variable is there with multiplication. So it might be something like 2/7 x equals 4/5, or it might be like 1 and 2/7 x equals 1 and 4/5. Something of that nature where we are having to divide or multiply by the fraction. So let's review very quickly first how to multiply fractions. So if I give you something like 2/5 times 4/6, when you're multiplying, all you have to remember is numerator times numerator over denominator times denominator. So here, there wouldn't be anything to do except to say 2 times 4 is 8, 5 times 6 is 30, and if it's simplified, you're done. What happens when we have a mixed number is you want to make sure that you change the mixed number into its improper fraction so that you come back to only having a numerator and a denominator. So here, if we were to do that, then 5 times 1 is 5, plus 2 is 7, so this would be 7/5 times 4/6. And again, then you can just multiply the numerators, multiply the denominators, and in this case we can simplify because they are both divisible by 2, so we would end up with 14/15 as our final answer. If you recall also, if I have to divide a fraction, so let's say I have 2/3 divided by 4/5, you remember what to do? Here we're going to remember that acronym of keep, change, flip, so that if I want to divide by 4/5, it is going to be the same as if I keep the 2/3, change division to multiplication, and then flip the second fraction to its reciprocal. So I can do this because when you multiply a fraction by its reciprocal, it's 1. It's equal to 1. So if I change my division problem to multiplication, I'm not changing the final answer. But now I can just do my numerator times my numerator, my denominator times my denominator, and then simplify as needed. So this concept here makes it a little bit easier than when we start to have equations that have fraction coefficients with them. So if I were to have the problem 2/3 x equals, let's say, 4/5. Let's start somewhat easy here. Okay. When we talked about adding and subtracting, and when we had integers, it's the opposite operation. So what I would think here is, well, this is multiplication that's happening, so to undo it, I need to divide. Except the difference here is that instead of dividing by a whole number, I would need to divide both sides by the fraction 2/3. Okay? Which we can do, and then write out here 4/5 divided by 2/3. Use the rule that we talked about, keep, change, flip, so that I would have 4/5 times 3/2. That's 12/10, which would then simplify to 6/5, which would simplify to 1 and 1/5. So this is a completely valid way to solve this equation, is to continually think in the opposite operation. The opposite of multiplication is division, to divide by a fraction. Now, the simpler way to show the work here is to not necessarily have to rewrite this portion of it. That instead of showing the division by the fraction here, you can just multiply by the reciprocal. So if I take that same problem, 2/3 x equaling 4/5. I know that I need to divide by 2/3. Well, I can say now that to divide by 2/3 is the same thing as multiplying by 3/2. The reasoning here, now I can say that, and I can see that the 3's would cancel, the 2's would cancel, that would equal my 1x, which is what I want to end up having. Over here now I don't have to do all that extra work. I can just do 4 times 3, which is 12, 5 times 2, which is 10, and then simplify that here to 1 1/5. It makes it just a little bit less work to have to show. So let's now look at what if I have the problem 2 1/2 x equals 6/7. I want you to think about what is the first thing that you would do here. Okay, if you said I need to take this mixed number and change it into an improper fraction, then you would be correct, so that we're only dealing with numerators and denominators. So 2 1/2 is going to become 5/2. So now we have 5/2 x equaling 6/7. Okay, I need to get this x by itself, so that means I need the 5/2 to go away. So to make 5/2 become 1, we're going to multiply by 2/5. 2 times 5 is 10, 5 times 2 is 10. 10 divided by 10 is 1. So that's the method used to kind of get down to the final answer there. And whatever you do to one side, so here I've multiplied by 2/5, I need to then multiply by 2/5 on this side. 6 times 2 is 12. 7 times 5 is 35. And that cannot be simplified anymore. Okay, now you can try. If I have negative 1 1/4 x, and that's going to equal 4/5, you can pause this recording and try to figure that one out on your own. Okay, what we're going to do first is change the negative 1 1/4 into its improper fraction counterpart. So 4 times 1 is 4, plus 1 is 5. So we have negative 5/4 x equaling 4/5. Okay. Then you're going to multiply both sides by the reciprocal of negative 5/4, which would be negative 4/5. Multiply both sides by that. This cancels, so you're left with your x, and negative 16 over 25. So if that is what you got as your answer, you're on the right track.